Amazing. Okay. So please feel free to send any questions that you might have.
And it can be about anything ranging from like academics to like literally anything else.
Good question about applications. So as y'all know, there's a lot of things going like up in the air right now. And like Harvard has not yet decided like whether or not fall will be modified at all. And so that of course is going to impact what our program will look like. What we do know is that as soon as Harvard makes a decision about what will happen in the fall, y'all will hear about the status of pre-orientation programs, but you can rest assured that whatever happens, like we are going to be here and provide programming and support, like even if it's on Zoom, for y'all. And we really want to like make sure that we can kind of like make the FYRE experience happen for y'all in whatever way that we can. And so that is something that we're gonna keep everybody updated on our Facebook page and on our Instagram and our Twitter. So like, please feel free to follow all of those, or email us if you have more questions about that. Great questions.
I just want to say that people should feel free to ask questions about anything. It doesn't even have to be first gen low income related or FYRE related. We all mentioned like our concentrations briefly, but yeah, just feel free to ask questions about everything. But I think there's a question in the chat now.
Yes, from Ananda, what resources did you learn about through FYRE that you think you probably wouldn't have known without it?
Okay, so I was in FYRE. So as someone who went through the 3-day program and it was literally my first introduction to Harvard, I feel like everything, like without FYRE, I feel like it would have been such a learning curve to figure what stuff like the OCS, the Office of Career Services is, or like these on-campus portals to find jobs like the SEO. There's like a million acronyms at Harvard, which like FYRE goes over and teaches you. There's the Bureau of Study Council.
They're now the Academic Resource Center, I think. But
oh, okay. Well, names are always changing, but it's like it's a place where you can get tutoring and help. I feel like I learned literally everything through FYRE, and multiple times my first year, I was like, wow, if it was not for FYRE, I would not have known any of this. And I made a lot of friends who were first generation low income throughout the year who did not do FYRE. And I ended up teaching them, or not teaching them, but like sharing with them a lot of the information that I got through FYRE, because they weren't able to participate in the program for whatever reason. And that was just stuff that's like not intuitive. I think like the biggest thing entering college that hit me really hard is that it's nothing like high school. It's not like everyone gets the same worksheet, everyone gets the same pamphlets. It's like you only get a pamphlet if you show up to go grab a pamphlet to whatever event, you know? Like you are really on your own schedule. And even though opening days is very programmed, it's still really intimidating and there's a lot to learn. So in terms of what resources I learned, I feel like literally everything was gained during FYRE.
Somebody I see in the chat just asked about jobs, and I'm super happy to talk about that because your girl has had several. But so someone asked, how soon is too soon to get a job? I think that like it obviously will depend a little bit on the person. I did get a job my freshman year. I used to work in the library, but I waited a little bit until like after opening days was done and after shopping week, so like after classes were chosen. Like I waited until I knew what classes I was taking, just because like then I felt more comfortable like trying to delegate like my time and like, okay, like this is when I'm probably gonna have free time that I can be working, and like so I wasn't like overwhelming myself. And then for like the process, I guess, through that, there's a lot of different ways to get a job on campus, basically. The good thing about it is that they don't make it very hard. Everywhere is pretty much hiring. So if you go to like Crimson Careers, that's like the website that basically is like our Harvard's like job portal essentially. And then within that, you're going to see a ton of different listings. It has jobs for like the future, like, you know, summer jobs and stuff, but it also has a lot of stuff for on campus. So if there are like offices on campus that are hiring, some professors will post things like if they need a babysitter or somebody to tutor their kid. So there's a whole variety of like options. You don't have to hold like a very traditional job. If you don't want to, like I have a friend who just babysits for a lot of different house tutors because she really likes doing that and like it's fun and she gets paid, so everyone's happy. And then it also will tell you whether or not they do federal work study or not. And then in terms of getting a research job, that can be a little bit different. Some of them are listed in Crimson Careers, but sometimes if there's a professor or a lab or a department doing research that you're really interested in, I would recommend reaching out to the PI or the professor doing it directly. That's usually the easiest way to get in touch with them. And then they'll tell you, you know, if they're having an opening in the lab. A lot of times research is kind of volunteer based or based off of your own time. But thankfully Harvard has a few programs that you can apply for to let you either get course credit for it or you can get a stipend to do it, and like that could take the place of a job depending on kind of what you are looking for out of the situation. So usually you can apply through your concentration once you've declared a concentration to get course credit for your research work, but you can also always apply to HCRP, which is the Harvard College Research Program, and they will give you funding, kind of like a stipend type situation for the semester, and that can function as a job for some people.
Yeah, and I think that the question about like how soon is too soon is so key because like again, like you're coming into a completely new space. You don't really know how much work you're gonna have or like how overwhelmed you're gonna be, and it's really like individualistic. Like you have to think about this like for yourself and trust yourself and know like how much you can push yourself. So yeah, my first year I didn't work at all. And that was because I loaded myself with a lot of extracurriculars and like my class load was like really hard for me to handle personally because my high school didn't fully prepare me enough for college classes. But now currently I have 3 jobs, which kind of sounds like a lot, but the cool thing is that Harvard has so many paid internships. So the 3 jobs that I have are like, they kind of replace my extracurriculars because they're places where like I can learn skills for my future, but I am getting paid for them. So like, I want to be an immigration lawyer and I intern at the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau and they pay me to do work that's really going to build my skill set too. So and like gives me some type of flexibility of free time in my other job. So it's really just like a balance, but there's so many great opportunities that like you can do things you're passionate for and get paid for it. And then there's also for public service for people who want to volunteer in like the greater Boston community, there's something called the Stride Fellowship, which is essentially, yeah, like a stipend like Claire was talking about, and you can apply for it, and essentially the school or like the Phillips Brooks House Association will give you money so that you can afford to do volunteer service that normally doesn't pay while still being okay financially for yourself.
Thank y'all so much for these amazing responses, and thank everybody for your questions. Okay, we have a really good question that is, are there any stigmas surrounding being FGLI on campus, especially with the level of affluence that some people have?
Okay, this is a tough question. I wouldn't say there's a stigma around being FGLI. I think the Harvard community of undergraduates has a really strong FGLI community that's really outspoken and does a bunch of programming, whether it's through FYRE or even through Primus, which is like our first generation students union. So being FGLI on campus is definitely spoken about, and I wouldn't say there's a stigma around it, but I will say personally, I feel like I've had a couple of moments of like confrontation and like realization with my friends, you know, about my identity as like a low income member of Harvard community versus other students who are paying their tuition in full. And you know, I think that stuff becomes apparent most often through like small details. Like, you know, I don't think people really upfront talk about their wealth or their family's income super directly. I think it's like, you know, like learning that people like went on like these trips around the world or like did whatever XYZ thing in high school. But yeah, I'd say like being first generation low income, it can definitely, again, like give you whiplash and be kind of scary to realize all of these things. But people are really understanding and cool, and there's such a variety of identities that I really feel like it's been just mostly like a learning experience, and really lovely to be able to meet people from all sorts of backgrounds.
We have another really good question as well. Is it more difficult if you're both FGLI and a member of the LGBT community? And other TLs on the call, feel free to hop on.
I can speak to that, I think. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex. I have been involved in FYRE for, this is my 3rd year now. And I'm also queer and non-binary. I'm a junior. I think it can be uniquely challenging to be queer in first gen, just because there isn't like a formal first gen and queer community here, which I know there is at some other institutions. So yeah, so like I work in the Office of VGLTQ Student Life, and like only a couple of the interns there are first gen or low income. And like at FYRE's beginning, there were like a lot less queer folks involved in it. So that was kind of hard, in that I felt that like there was like the space for my queer identity and the space for like my first gen low income identity. But I think over the past couple of years, that's started to change a bit. There have been a lot more queer people involved in FYRE in the past couple of years, and the first gen community has been like so absolutely like wonderful and accepting, and like use it. Honestly, I think the first gen low income community is the community that is most respectful of my pronouns and switching my name, besides the queer community. And yeah, and they've just been like wonderfully supporting. Yeah, so I think that while there's not like a formal space for like that intersection, I think both like separate spaces are very supportive of the other. And I haven't really felt like that was a big issue. If that answers your question adequately. If not, we can talk more.
And going along with that, like, just like Alex says, like, even though there's not really like a formal community, there are so many of us who like represent this intersection, and like we are here for each other. And like there are many of us on the program, there are many of us on this Zoom call, and so definitely like you will find that form of community and that form of support. It looks like we had a question about okay, how do you apply for internships, and how does scheduling work for internships during the school year?
I can talk about internships a little bit. So I was on campus. I was part of the Latinx in Finance and Technology, and there are a lot of different time periods for internships. So it's kind of like up to what you want to do to like, you know, like know which months you have to be aware, or like know when to apply. So for example, I'm studying computer science, so a lot of my internships are in like software engineering, and those are usually from like August to like October, November, December. around that time period. So like I know that at least last year, as soon as I got to school, or like even throughout the summer, I was preparing for those internships, um, just like practicing online, and just like being aware that I have to apply. And I think as a first year, there can be a lot of internships, but also like a lack of internships, just just by simple fact that like you're new and like you don't have as much experience, and like internships are usually like sophomore, junior, um, kind of things to do. For example, like when I was a first year, I had like this like very informal internship, um, and then I know a lot of people like take that first year to like go study abroad. So like your first year is really open to like what you want to do. There's not really a pressure to get an internship. Um, and so like I recommend like doing what you want to do. Like if an internship is what you want to do, then go for that. But also if like you've been thinking about studying abroad, or like just taking like a summer break for like the first time, like that's like the perfect time to do it. But yeah, to speak to like other types of internships, like I know finance also has like a similar schedule to tech. If you're going for like public service, it's usually like more around the springtime, or like public service, like law, um all of these other internships are usually like around January through like the spring. So it really depends, like the timeline change. I know for finance, if there's people like wanting to study like econ or like economics, like usually those are really early. So like you have to like do it like the year before if you want an internship for the next year. Um, if you want to do a research position, that usually also depends on what you're studying. Um, so like if you want to do a research position in like physics, like for example, like Daniel, like you would have to like maybe like reach out to a professor to talk about that, or apply to programs. I also have done computer science research in the past, and usually I had to apply for that like during the springtime. So like I would recommend, like if you know someone that has done something that you want to do in the future, just like reach out to them. For example, like I reached out to people for my computer science internship, like when do I apply, um, what resources should I use to prepare. So like just reach out to people and ask those questions, because it's really up to what you want to do, and depending on what you want to do, like those things change, like deadlines and preparation as well.
Yeah.
Hi. Go
Go ahead, Alondra.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Alondra. I'm a co-TL for this upcoming fall. I take she, her. I do want to talk a little bit about like my first year. Like Adelson was saying, I similarly, like I did not have a ton of experience. I didn't really know what I wanted to do during the summer. I had no idea summer internships were even a thing. So I ended up becoming a summer school proctor, which was really a really great experience for me because one, it was more low key. Being a summer school proctor, like you get to live on campus, so you get free housing and you get free food from the dining hall every day for about like 8 weeks or so. So it's also not that long if you do want to go back home or do want to do something else before school starts again. And you also similarly find a really nice community there, and you become a proctor or like an RA almost for summer school students who are there. And you also get to take a class for free, a summer school course, which was really great because now I had this extra spot in my schedule during the school year. So I can kind of take whatever I wanted to take and didn't have to worry about that. So highly recommend looking into that, especially if you're not super sure about what you want to do during the summer, or if you don't want to do anything that's like, I don't know, like a big internship or have that extra burden there. So it was nice that I didn't really have to pay for anything, and I still got to eat, and I got shelter, and I got to meet very cool people. And then on top of that, during that summer, I did a part-time internship with an ed tech nonprofit that was like paying me very little. But I was sort of able to do two things at once because I had the time, and it was really great experience. So maybe finding something like that, like two different things where you can be supported from one so you can do the other, might be useful. And then in terms of, I think the question also mentioned like during the school year having an internship or finding an internship. Last semester I had an internship with this biotech startup, and what I'll say about that, it was very difficult for me, especially with my workload. So I would just like be very sure that you want to take on like a larger role like that, like actually interning at a company. Make sure that you have your schedule super set so that you know your hours, you know your workload, you know how much you can handle, and putting it on your plate. But I do recommend, if you are looking to do things that are outside of Harvard, and still a good way to make money, if you can find a company that'll pay you.
Yeah, I also want to, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Also add, maybe there's some people kind of freaking out that they have to find something to do for the summer. There's the expectation that you can totally chill out your freshman summer and not really do some crazy Google internship or something. As I'm like applying into things and I've like talked to people, they usually see your freshman summer as kind of you're still experiencing, getting used to everything. So there's not that much pressure to do something your first summer.
Yeah, I was gonna say very much the same thing. Yeah, I remember I used to be pre-med, and I remember my first summer, or rather my first year, I was like freaking out about what I was gonna do that summer, and I was like, I have to get into a lab and like be working on like the type of research and like what I want to specialize in med school. And I just remember I talked to this PI in this lab I was shadowing in, and she was like, literally chill out. She was like, this is the summer where you should do whatever it is you actively want to do, and then later summers you can work on building whatever experience it is to what you want to apply to later. And so that's what I did. I just did this random study abroad program that I thought was cool, and then I decided I didn't want to be pre-med anymore, so it worked out.
I also see a question from Juliet. Is it difficult to study abroad as an FGLI student? And that's what I ended up doing my first summer, partially because I went off to winter break and didn't realize the applications were due already. So I was kind of like stuck and because like I honestly didn't know what was going on. But I also probably would have done study abroad anyways, just because my family like never traveled except to Mexico. So my family's Mexican, so we'd go there. But like I wanted to like know more about the world and stuff, and I never had that opportunity. And with Harvard, the study abroad options, you can do it like two ways. You can do a official Harvard study abroad program where like Harvard professors go with you and like you take the class and then you get to do like the fun touristy stuff like wherever you are. Or you can do like an independent version of study abroad where like maybe you go with another university or with a university in the country where you want to go. And then, so yeah, those are like the two avenues. And then in terms of funding, it's kind of like a 50-50 chance. So essentially, in order to do it, you have to apply to the program and then apply for funding separately. So you have to get into the program and have to get funding. So it's happened to some people that I know where like they might get into the program but not get funding and be unable to go, unfortunately. But if you do get the funding like I did, I got my full program covered, and then I got like an extra $2,500 like for my personal spending, like for flights and like while I was there, which was great. So essentially like for FGLI students, your financial aid package does transfer over. So I got the program covered and my personal expenses as well. And I had a great time, so.
Yes, and just to quickly follow up to like what Lisette said, there are a lot of like centers for international studies at Harvard who will offer aid that is proportional to the amount of aid that you get from the college. And so a lot of the times, like Lisette said, those programs will be fully covered and you can receive an additional stipend. And so there are a lot of like bases of funding and support for FGLI students if you want to study abroad. Okay, It looked like we also had a really great question. How do you deal with the social aspects of being FGLI, whether it's going out to eat a lot or taking trips or vacations, etc., and set boundaries with your friends? Also, these are great questions, y'all. Y'all are great.
Really amazing content.
These are deep.
We're pausing.
All ready for section.
Hi guys, my name is Brooke, and I'm a first year. I'm about to be a sophomore. And as for I completely get like the eating out part. I think what I just decided on was whatever money that I was going to be able to get from Harvard, whether somebody mentioned, I think it was Sophia, like the winter coat fund or just any other fund, that I was just going to put it in my savings, and maybe I would go out to eat if it was like really important, but otherwise I would just eat in the dining halls. So if people wanted to be like, oh, hey, should we meet up for lunch? I'd be like, totally, let's just go to Annenberg. And the best thing about Annenberg, which is a freshman dining hall, is that it's near all the dorms, it's near all your classes, it's near the libraries. So like, it's actually just more convenient to just go eat there than in anywhere else. Or if I really did want to go out and eat with some of my professors, etc., Harvard has funding. The program is called Classroom to Table, and so you can just get a group of your friends, invite a professor, and then you there's like a list of restaurants, and then you make a reservation, and they pay for that, and you guys just get to have a good time and talk. So I think you just have to go in. For me, I went in with the mindset that I'm going to be applying to med school, so I don't know what kind of funding or financial aid I'm going to be able to get once I'm in med school. I don't know if they're going to be as great as the one that it's undergrad. So I just want to save everything. So just go in with the mindset, and there will definitely be people who don't want to eat out or who just want to eat at Annenberg. And if those people will only hang out with you if you eat out outside of campus, then they're not really people that you want to really hang out with. As for the vacations, I don't know. I've never been on one. So you guys could talk about it. Yeah.
I think that's a really good question. I think like I think it depends a little bit on the person. Like, and I say this because like, so for me, like the biggest thing about like setting boundaries, like with that kind of thing for me is like it's not so my friends, because like I feel like I'm at a point now where like all of my friends are like very understanding of like what, you know, I'm willing to spend money on and what I'm not, but like myself setting boundaries with me, because like you know, if somebody's like, oh, you want to go do something, like obviously the first thing I want to say is yes, but then I'm like, let's be reasonable here, like and like sometimes like it's partially on me, right? Like I understand that, and like because I feel like for the most part, as Brooke said, like if somebody's like, oh, like do you want to go grab like lunch or something, and they're like, oh, like did you want to go like to Sweet Green or whatever, which is like in the square, sometimes I'll be like, every once in a while I'm like, yes, because you know I'm gonna treat myself, but most of the time I'm like, oh, well, like can we go to like Quincy, for example, like or something instead, and they're like, oh yeah, like I probably didn't need to spend that money anyways, like and I think you kind of get to a point where, you know, most of your friends are also reasonable broke college students, like, and so we're just kind of all in a similar situation. As to like trips or vacations and stuff, I think like, well, so I've never been on spring break personally, because I'm on the cheer team and we have practice over spring break, so like I don't get to leave anyways, like I'm not allowed to go anywhere. But I think that I like what was I gonna say? I think that like a way to kind of think about it is, it's like, is what like a trip or an activity or something, or somebody wants to go out into Boston or do something that's like more expensive, like I think first I'll think about like, what is it for? Like, is it just for kicks? If like, you know, I'm willing to spend a little bit more money to go to a dinner for like a friend's birthday or something, like if it's something that's really important to me, and like, you know, I tend to like set aside money that I can spend on something like that, like if I want to do something nice for a friend or something. But I think that in general, it's kind of, being honest with yourself, with what you can work with your personal finances, and what would it be like a fiscally responsible decision. Like, I think that's really important.
Yeah, I can speak into vacations. My sophomore year, my blocking group is a group of people that you form together to like live in the same house. And house is a dorm that where you spend most of your time at. And they suggested that we go to, I think it's the Dominican Republic. And they kind of come up to me and they're like, yeah, the total price is like $2,000. I'm like, yeah, way too expensive. And I told them, I didn't explain everything. And like most times I've been vulnerable and we've talked about my background and how I'm from a low income household, and the conversation was kind of weird. I mean, how it just seems like a weird conversation. And but I just was upfront with them. I was like, that's too much for me. It's a hard conversation. But if they're your friends, they kind of understand, and then they will try to like find a more equitable location. My friends in particular offer to pay for me, and I was like, no, I can't take that. But those are tough conversations to have. But if they're with your friends and your blocking group, and they will also try to understand, and they if it's possible, make a more equitable location. But if not, it's just what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I have been fortunate enough to taken a few trips throughout my 3 years at Harvard, simply because I'm very good at finding very cheap flights. Google Flights is your friend if you do ever want to try and take a trip with your friends. I also have family. My family's from Mexico, so I have a lot of family in Mexico, specifically in Guadalajara and Cabo San Lucas. So my roommate and I, who is also low income, we decided to take one of our spring break trips to like each of those locations. So one year we went to Cabo San Lucas where I had family. So it was very, very cheap. Ended up spending like, I don't know, like $500 to $700, which is like a good, like, it's pricey, like definitely money that you have to be able to like have to spend. But like having my family there, I didn't really have to pay for food, didn't have to pay for transportation. I got a lot of free shit. So if you can at all finesse something like that, definitely check it out. Harvard Alumni Association takes spring break trips. I think there's one in Turkey, one in Greece, I want to say, that are available to undergrads, to students. I personally have never haven't been able to go on one, but they're available, and they have scholarships available also for students. So you can very well, if you're able to get in and get a scholarship, go on this free spring break trip where you basically just kind of chill with professors and some other students for a whole week, which is very nice. So yeah, that is what I have on traveling.
And the Alumni Association, they offer like up to full scholarships for students sometimes who apply to go on those trips. So that's really cool.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other opportunities where you, some through student groups where you'll have to pay like part of the cost, but not all of it. So like if you can pay for like that part of it, it'll end up being a really good deal. Like I ended up spending a couple weeks in Vietnam last summer, and I had to pay for my flights, which wasn't cheap, of course, but like the program I was with paid for everything else, which ended up being a good deal. I was going to be doing a similar thing in Dubai over spring break, and then Corona came, and that got canceled. Yeah, and if you do some research and ask the right people, you can typically find other like non-Harvard opportunities that are cheap. So I don't go home over winter break. I don't have contact with my family anymore, which means that I typically have to get creative or just stay with my roommates over break. So I talked to some folks at the Office for Career Service about this this year, and they sent me like a list of programs that people usually do for their gap years, but some have shorter term programs. And I ended up volunteering with a sea turtle conservation org in Mexico, which also paid for most of my living expenses, and all I had to pay for was like my flights and a small program fee. So yeah, I got to like go play with baby sea turtles for really cheap in Mexico for like 2 weeks in December. So there's hacks.
So just to add to, sorry, the question about like spending and trips and going out to eat, I've personally found the problem to be the reverse, because there is something called the Harvard bubble, which is the like desire and sort of impulse to stay on campus and to just eat at your dining hall all the time and do your schoolwork and you know, just do Harvard related things and stay directly in Cambridge on campus, which is, of course, there's nothing wrong with that, especially your first year. Everything's super new and exciting. But I also think it's really worth, if you can, trying to get out into Boston and trying to explore these different Boston communities, because Boston is an interesting city with a lot of cool restaurants all over. And it can get a little claustrophobic at times, just being in Cambridge all the time. So I think definitely it's very easy to go to a dining hall and to avoid spending money on food there, but don't hesitate to treat yourself by going to Chinatown for boba, or like eating out sometimes. Like, explore Boston and enjoy that with your friends.
And also, food tends to be cheaper the further you get out of Harvard Square. Awesome. It looks like a lot of these questions are getting responded through the chat. So please feel free to send like more questions that y'all may have. Pretty soon, I'm gonna screen share a couple of pubs that we have for y'all for things that FYRE is doing. We're also gonna pub our FYRE social media so that y'all can like follow, and also like feel free to send us any questions that you might have after this panel to there. But keep sending questions.
Someone asked about like if we will ever be able to, or like if students are ever able to like live in a suite with their friends. So we could talk about like first year housing and what that might look like if we're allowed back on campus. For the meantime, if someone wants to share about that.
I can talk a little bit about that. So I'm Aisha. I'm a first year at the college, and I'm part of FYRE. I was a FYRE baby last year, and I'm going to be a TL this coming year. And basically, the things that you need to know that blocking groups, linking groups, and houses. So I blocked with 5 of my friends, just like people I've met through pre-orientation or like outside organizations. And basically, yes, you do get the chance to room with your blockmates, but it's not like required or like guaranteed kind of. It depends a lot on like what room you get and like the living situation. But also I know like a bunch of other people who aren't in my blocking group but are in the same house that like we've been talking about like rooming together if we hopefully get back on campus next semester. So that's really open. And then linking groups, if you guys would like to know, are like a different group of people that you link with and they end up in the same neighborhood as you, so they live a lot closer to you than, like, they're guaranteed to live closer to you than other groups of people. So yeah, if that answers your question.
Yeah, just like going off of that, like I, like for example, lived with my blockmates my sophomore year, and then my junior year. So this year I ended up not living with my blockmates anymore. I actually lived right next to Danny, and with one of my teammates, and I ended up having a great time. And I chose to do that because I didn't want to live with my blockmates for a whole bunch of reasons that are not important. But so you do have a lot of flexibility within that. Like you can, live with anyone in your house basically, which is really nice.
Yeah, and for first years, before you go and get your housing, you're gonna be given a questionnaire. I don't know if you've already been given this, but you'll be given a questionnaire to sort of talk about your rooming preferences, like what are the kinds of things you do? Are you on the, are you more tidy than not, and stuff like that. So then Harvard takes that and tries to sort of pair you with people that are similar or that they feel that you would get along with. And mine happened to turn out great. Like my roommate, we've been rooming together all 3 years, and we will next year. She's like my best friend. So I mean, it's a hit or miss, but definitely worth trying.
Does someone want to tackle the dating culture on campus question?
Maybe we should address best money saving finesses.
Oh yes, the finesses. Sorry, I jumped right over it.
Oh, you're good. Personally, something that I have done is like a couple of times I've gotten funded to do different things. Like last summer, I was funded through Dr. Class, which is the David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies. Lots of folks here are involved with various programs through that. But I was fully funded to go to Buenos Aires over the summer and work an internship there. And the funding that they gave me had some extra money in it, and that just went straight into my savings account, like dead ass straight there. And like when I was in Argentina, of course, like I spent some of that money, but like whenever I get money from everything, also like the first year startup grant, savings, though I also like bought a pair of Vans because like come on, like treat yourself, right? So yeah, like anything that you can apply for funding for, like if you're getting leftover money, oftentimes like a lot of centers on campus will be kind of generous about the money they give out, which is really great. I have just like sent that straight into my savings account, and I found that's a great way to make income without actually having a job, though I do also have 3 jobs on campus. So.
Yeah, to echo that like extra funding thing, I've done a couple of trips with Harvard, and every time they give me more money than I need to actually go on the trip. So you just like pocket that money. And then also on like a everyday type of basis, like Celine said, like I also have 3 jobs, but like sometimes at those jobs, you can report more hours than like the time it takes for you to do the job, and then do your homework while you're in the office, but still report those hours as being in the office. And then you might have some extra money in your account. So everyday things.
Yeah. Also, like for example, the winter coat fund that someone mentioned, they give you like $300, right? Almost between 200 and 300. Like my coat that I bought was like 100 or something. Like also you can check like Facebook Marketplace, like to find nice coats that are maybe slightly used but are perfectly fine. Definitely never need to get a Canada Goose jacket. You'll see a good amount of those, but they're bullshit. They don't keep you that warm. And like you can pocket that extra money. I think also sorry, I'm reading the chat. Also, what was I gonna say? Oh, we get what's called Board Plus, which is $60 or $80 every semester, which goes right into your like card, like your Crimson card, like your ID card that you could use at any one of their locations. Usually, like it goes on here, and then you just swipe this, or you give it to wherever you're gonna buy. So like Lamont Cafe has good coffee. There's Café Gato Rojo. There's Barker Center where you can buy food, and it's free money from Harvard. So that's also a place that you can go if a friend is like, hey, do you want to grab coffee? Like you can go to one of these Board Plus places.
Can someone else confirm that they also do what I do? Because I'm getting flamed in the chat, and I know I'm not the only one.
No, you're not. You're definitely not.
Literally every EDI intern does that.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Yeah.
my boss will like urge me to do that. Like if I wasn't able to work like a certain week or like I worked less, they'll be like still report the same amount of hours. Because they know, like, especially if you're working a good job or internship, they know your situation and they know why you're working and they know that you're working 2 other jobs. And people are allies more often than not at Harvard. One job.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're good.
Okay, I work in the registrar's office and they do the same thing. Like if I send an email, my boss will be like, you could log 30 minutes. like, and that's like if she literally emails me on like the weekend or something, she's like, oh, well, you responded to my email, you know, log some time for that. So like, yeah, like they get it. They've been there. Like it's nice. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say that like, oh, sorry. Just really quick, I would say that just having an on-campus job in general is a finesse because like people, like your bosses tend to be your allies more often than not. And like they pay pretty well. Like I think on-campus jobs can pay up to like $16, which is pretty awesome. And you might not necessarily find the same kind of opportunities off campus. And people usually tend to be pretty understanding. And yeah, like they said, you can log on a ridiculous amount of hours. So it's awesome.
Yeah, just to hop off what Dani said really quickly, my freshman year I worked off campus and it was the worst decision of my life. Like I worked at a store that had me working 25 hours a week and I was getting paid minimum wage, whereas like I was working on campus like 10 hours a week for like $15 an hour, and sometimes I was just like, yes, don't work at the Starbucks on Mass Ave. Sorry. I just need everyone to know that. But just overall, like you are offered way more flexibility and just like way more opportunities to either like get your shifts covered or like all of the vacations that you're on, like for school, you're on for work. So it's just way easier that way. So I would recommend like off-campus jobs only if it's like something you're really passionate about or it's like a necessity or like an internship.
Yeah, I feel like it's really hard to get an off-campus job, or at least like harder than get an on-campus job, just because there's so many on-campus jobs. Sorry, I have comments on multiple things. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I think most staff at Harvard, like more often than not, are sympathetic to like being a broke college student. My boss, like I said, I work at the Office of FGLTQ Student Life, and my boss was like, whenever I see you, you count that as paid hours. And I was like, cool. So yeah, I think most are pretty sympathetic to that, and they'll help you like get hours as much as you can when you need it. Yeah, Harvard do got bread, and they will be okay. Like they're like, this is a recession. No, calm down, you'll be fine. Anyway, but oh, my greatest finesse. This is really hard because I take a lot of Daddy Harvard's money. Things they paid for my study abroad. They paid for my wisdom teeth removal this past semester. They paid for me to go to like 4 countries. I bought with my Board Plus because I found out I had to use like $100 of Board Plus before I left campus. So I bought like 64 smoothies and just gave them to people. There's really no limit to how you want to play this.
There really isn't. Also, I really want to be mindful of everybody's time. So really quick before people start heading out, I really want to self-pub for FYRE. So let me show y'all a couple of things we have going on here. Oh, just a second. Hold up. I don't know how to share screen very well. There we go. Okay, so one of the things that FYRE has, I guess that's part of this like extended Visitas, is the FYRE pairing program. And so basically, like, if y'all are pre-frosh, you can sign up to be like a Visitas like hostee, and like you will get paired up with a quote unquote host who is just going to be like another student who's like already enrolled in Harvard, and is probably going to be part of the FYRE community or is already, and they can just answer any questions that you might have. just like in this panel about like FYRE, but also about like anything in general at Harvard. So like feel free to screenshot this, you know, take a picture of it on your phone, and just like feel free to sign up. Like it's a Google form, it takes 2 minutes, and like we have so many people who would love to just like be paired up with you and answer any questions that you might have. So yes, I'll leave that up for just a second before I switch over to the next one. Okay. And then one more thing. Please also feel free to follow FYRE on social media. We're on Facebook and Insta and Twitter, and you can also email us if you prefer that. We are literally always there to like answer any questions that you might have. So you can DM us literally any time of day, email us, and we'll answer any questions. So feel free to screenshot that, take a picture of that, and follow us. And like I said earlier, we'll also have like updates on FYRE as well. Great. Do we have any more questions that haven't been answered yet?
The dating one.
The dating one. If anyone has any thoughts, y'all can respond. Also, TLs, feel free to drop your contact info, and like anybody who's in this call, like please feel free to follow us, and like you can like bug us at any time. We are here to support you as much as we can.
But we also do want to be respectful of your guys' time. So if y'all have to dip or you have anything else to do, feel free to just drop off the chat or drop off the call.
If there are any last questions, just like put them in the chat right now. We can also answer them through there. Oh, someone asked if Harvard pays for your flights to and from campus, and I think that's a really good question. Unfortunately, Harvard does not. They did in this circumstance because it was like an emergency, like leave the campus, things like that. But yeah, that is a good question, and unfortunately the answer is no. But there are ways to find like cheaper flights, like again, Google Flights, as Alondra mentioned, and then there's like a bunch of like Student Universe pages like that that help you find cheaper flights.
Sometimes for like study abroad too, they'll pay for your flights for that. Like they let me like include that on like my list of expenses when I study abroad.
Also, someone asked one thing you should take on campus when you move in: a fan if you can. It's really hot in the fall. Like, you can buy them at CVS and stuff, but they do tend to sell out kind of fast. So if you have the opportunity to like get a fan or order one ahead of time or something, I recommend it.
A nice blanket. I have like the nicest blanket from like well, my mom gave it to me, and it's so soft and it's amazing. And it's on campus right now, and it's sad. Sorry.
Sorry, Allison. Something that I like, or that I brought from home that I like, is I brought like a bunch of just like posters and things from my wall. In general, obviously you can buy those too, but I just like had a bunch of things at home that I had made, and it was kind of like the easiest way to feel at home in my new room, just to like have stuff on my walls. It's nice to make your room feel like a room and not like a square with 4 walls that's empty, you know? So I recommend it.
Also, if you're thinking about getting something like, so I had a printer this past semester, and it was really, really helpful. I didn't have to pay for printing, but I know obviously like some people cannot afford that. But if you wait until the end of your first year, a lot of the seniors are obviously going to be leaving, and you can get so many cheap things for so many things just for really cheap prices. Like I got a microwave for like $10. I got a lamp for like PS5, just some things just randomly people are just going to give it away for free because they can't take it, futons, everything. So I would say for like big things, like wait off a little bit, because even in the beginning of your year, there's going to there are sales where like the things that the seniors left behind, they sell them and give the money to I think something for humanity, I think, yeah. But just wait until the end and you can get a lot of these things for really, really cheap.
Also, if you do spring cleanup, which is fall cleanup, but it happens at the end of the year and you're cleaning all the dorms after students move out, because they host alumni and summer school in the dorms, alumni for the reunions. But dorm crew's policy is that anything you find you can keep, and people leave so much shit behind. It is ridiculous. I got a Gucci watch last year. Someone left a Gucci watch and now I own it. Oh right, yeah, Adelson was.
I'm fucking dead, Alex. That's my code TL. Woo!
Also for like bringing stuff to your dorm, I would recommend like don't feel like you have to bring every single article of clothing that you own, because at least for me that is something that I deeply regretted when I had to move back at the end of first year and my luggage was like 80 pounds and there was no way to minimize that. And so like definitely like bring what you think you wear regularly, and like I promise you won't miss that much stuff.
Yeah, I second that. Like, if you haven't worn it in the last 7 months, do not take it. You don't need it. Like, I am a chronic overpacker. Like, I understand that it makes you feel better to have it there, but packing it up at the end of the year, it's not it. You don't want it. You don't want to have to do it. Yeah, it's not worth it.
There was a question about the startup grant.
Yeah.
To explain it really briefly, it's the part of your financial aid package. So once you're committed and on my.harvard and everything, the startup grant I think is $1,000 the first semester. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll get it through direct deposit. So once you're on my.harvard, you'll have to enroll for direct deposit with your bank account and whatnot, and they send it to you like pretty quick, I would say. So yeah, it's super simple. It's a super easy process, not something to stress about.
And if you get the startup grant, it'll be dictated in your financial aid package if you've received it or not.
Any other questions?
Did someone ever answer the dating question?
Oh, it also
no
looks
one's
like we
answered
have a
yet.
question. Did you end up using every dime of the startup and needing more money when you were setting up your dorms?
Danny really doesn't want us to answer the dating question.
I'm not saying that. Nobody said that.
Danny, what are you trying to hide?
Oh, I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm not the one trying to hide anything on this panel.
Okay.
So I think I had money left over from the startup grant. I don't think you need $1,000. And I think as far as my memory goes, we got $1,000 each semester, so it's a total of $2,000. And yeah, I would just recommend, I splurged on a like a mattress pad, because like honestly you don't know what's happened on those mattresses before, so just getting a mattress pad made me feel a lot better. And then I got like twinkle lights and some posters, and like that was it. And I didn't even think it cost me like more than like $300 to set up.
Yeah, I did not use all of my startup grant, not even close. They like gave me, like I got a refund my first year and they gave it to me and I was like, what do I use this for? And they were like, I don't know, whatever you want. And I was like, cool, thanks. And then I had to manage my own money.
For the people asking what the summer contribution is, so like basically it was like it used to be a part of your tuition that was like you were responsible for, but it's like all under whatever you like had to pay to Harvard, like under your financial aid. But like, and it was, I don't remember how much it is, but it used to go up every year. So like mine would have been the most this coming year, as I'm going to be like going into senior year, but they're getting rid of it. And you don't have to pay for that anymore, which is nice.
Also, I feel like, I mean, I don't think I was ever charged for it. Like, I don't think I ever paid for it. So, like, sometimes I guess you do and sometimes you don't, depending on your package.
I think it's like, it's not, like, they're not going to charge you separately, but they, like, if you have to pay anything with your financial aid package, like, they break it down as, like, you would be responsible for this, but it's all under, like, whatever your tuition would be. Yeah.
Are we going to address the dating question at all?
Someone asked, how do you get refunds?
I can also
receipts. I know you can answer this question.
Answer the dating question.
Do you want me to talk about refunds or not?
Yeah,
let's talk about refunds.
So I just did it like a little bit ago because we got money back for getting kicked out for coronavirus. And I hadn't collected my coin yet. So you go in to your like my.harvard and your student accounts. And if you go into where it says like bank accounts, like manage accounts, if you click on that, as long you have to first set up a direct deposit. So you have to be connected to your bank account needs to be connected to your my.harvard so that there's a place for the direct deposit to go. And then because I didn't know what to do, I went to the part where it's under my.harvard where it's like in financial aid, there's a thing you can click that's like, help me do something. And under that refund, request a refund is one of the options. And then there's just a little form you have to fill out. It's pretty easy. You type in how much you have that you're trying to get back, or request whatever the balance is in your account. And then they, in like 3 to 5 business days, put the money in your bank account.
And just because we did tell y'all that you can ask us anything and we will answer, we can definitely get to the dating question. We just wanted to prioritize any questions related to FYRE stuff or FGLI stuff. And so if anyone wants to, begin to answer that, feel free to pitch in. Spill the tea. I think I will kind of like preface this by saying that like dating on campus is very much what you make it, like, and it's very hard to capture like the essence of dating on campus on a panel with 5 people or whatever. Like you'll get on campus and you'll find people who like are too busy to date and they're like, I never want to date anyone because I'm too busy. And then you'll find people on campus who are like, I can make dating work, I can make this balance. And there are so many different kinds of people like within that whole like spectrum of like what dating looks like for them. And so definitely like know what you're looking for and like know what you feel comfortable with. And like you will find like somebody who also has a similar feelings about that.
Yeah, the reason I have not offered my own take on this is because I've been dating my freshman roommate since my first year, which I don't recommend doing. I'm lucky it's worked out, but like I have no experience in the dating scene at Harvard.
I mean, I guess, I don't know. I was one of those people that was too busy to date until I wasn't, because I found somebody I wanted to be dating. So I think like, yeah, it works out for like you and that other person. Hopefully like you just kind of figure out like what, I don't know, you're willing to spend time on and like what makes it worth allocating time. I don't know. I used to say like dating seems like an extracurricular and I'm maxed out on those. So like, yeah, it's really like you'll figure it out. You figure it out.
I've also been dating someone since my second semester of my first year, but I will say that like first semester, it does feel like there's a lot of pressure to like hook up with people or go to parties or be like super social all the time, because like even my brothers were like, if you're gonna find someone, it's gonna be during college, so like basically look out is what they were saying. So like I don't know, I felt a lot of pressure to like find a person at that moment or like in that time frame. But honestly, just like focus on yourself. Like if you want to go out and like get to know more people, like that's great, but also just like be mindful of like where your mind is at and like where your body's at. Like if you're exhausted or like how you're feeling, like it's okay to stay in for a night, it's okay to stay in for a weekend. You don't have to be outside socializing all the time, because it does catch up to like your mental and physical health too.
Beautiful. Are there any other questions before we close everything out? Okay. Thank you guys all so much for coming. Thank you to our lovely, amazing, beautiful, wondrous panelists. You guys make our world go round. And thank you to everyone who decided to show up. We're hoping that this was helpful for you guys. As always, we're available all the time. Feel free to contact us with whatever, whenever. We'll keep you guys posted on the decisions in regards to the program and just like how we can continue to support you all in whatever form that FYRE takes place this upcoming year. Good luck with your decisions. I know that decisions haven't, like, some people might not have made decisions yet, but yeah. Dani, anything to add? Panelists, anything to add? You're all amazing and I love you so much.
Yeah, thank y'all so much for coming, and thank you to our panelists. We love you so much, and we're so excited to have such a great team of team leaders and hopefully such a great FYRE group this year. Yeah, y'all, like I said earlier, and I literally will never get tired of saying this, like, never hesitate to reach out to us. We're always here. Like, whether you commit to Harvard or not, whether you decide to do FYRE or not, like, our goal is to support first generation, low income, underrepresented students, like, always, period. And so we're always here. Thank y'all for coming.
Yeah, please
And
come
follow
out.
us.
Please do FYRE, and like don't report me for fraud, please.
Don't report any of us, please.
Don't report any of us for fraud. We're all so poor.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.